All right, hey guys, number 481 here from the VPforce Discord. Just wanted to put together a quick video kind of walking through the new trim following auto calibration feature that's coming to next version of TelemFFB, specific to X-Plane and in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So I'll just do a quick walkthrough here of how to calibrate an aircraft and what to expect after you've done the calibration. So as you can see here, I've got flight queued up. In the background over here, I have the configurator for my joystick. Just so we can see what my physical stick is doing. And then, of course, I have the application running over here on the right. I'm going to go ahead and unpause the sim here and get cooking. So currently in autopilot, it's wanting to fight me a little bit there. Um, I like to use the input viewer, especially for demonstration purposes. That way you can kind of see what the trim is doing and what the axis that the simulator is seeing as compared to what the physical axis is doing. So anytime you load an aircraft that doesn't already have a calibration, you'll see this nice big yellow button pop up over here, pulsing at you, trying to get your attention. So we're going to go ahead and click on that, and that's going to bring up our new dialog where the auto calibration feature exists. Up here at the top, and this is actually going to be expanded for you guys first time you launch this up here. It'll remember next time if you've collapsed it. But there is a full set of step-by-step instructions on kind of how to do what I'm fixing to show you here right now. Go ahead and get that out of the way. Because we basically built a autopilot with a PID to fly the aircraft while it's doing the auto calibration. There is a little bit of a tuning here. 90% aircraft are going to work just fine with the normal. If you're trying a very sensitive aerobatic aircraft, you may need to reduce the sensitivity of the control loop, or a big heavy bird that's very sluggish, and you notice it porpoising, slowly while it's trying to level out the aircraft. You may need to increase the sensitivity a little bit. Normal calibration should be fine for the most part. Walking through the rest of the form here, there is a live status, and this will come alive as soon as we start a calibration. We've got the indicated speed here. There is a color encoded vector that'll show us if we're speeding up or slowing down and at what severity. So the idea is to get a steady speed set that you can run through the trim calibration at, which will then produce a trim curve, which is then used to move the physical axis in such a way to replicate the most realistic trim that we can, considering the fact that we're doing all of this outside of the simulator and trying to trick the simulator into thinking it's dealing with a regular joystick, right? So currently you can see I've got autopilot enabled. This won't work with autopilot enabled, so I'm going to just quickly go here and drop off the autopilot. And I'm currently in a descent 600 feet per minute. Tool wants you to be within plus or minus 500 feet per minute to be able to begin the calibration. So the begin button has become active here, and I'm going to go ahead and hit begin calibrating. Now when I do that, my hands are off the control. You can see I'm moving the stick here. My physical controls are disconnected currently from the simulator. What the application with the calibration is doing, it's polling the polarity of the controls to make sure it understands that up is up and down is down. But it's also trying to find the trim neutral point, right? All these aircraft are built by the flight designers to work best with a center sprung joystick, right? The simulation itself has no understanding of force feedback. So what we're trying to do here is just find what is the, for the current speed, what is the proper trim position for a neutral position on the joystick. And you can see that reflected here. I've got a little bit of nose up trim. Joystick from the sim's perspective is centered, and my speed is relatively stable. You can see it did drift far enough there that it went back into an adjustment phase, and it'll continue to do that, right? As I'm going along here, so I'm roughly steady at 94 knots, although I am slowly. You see the arrow is a little bit yellowish. It'll fade from red if I'm decelerating or accelerating quickly, to yellow, to green, and then finally you'll see a vertical green bar if my speed is virtually stable, right? You see it starting to slowly turn green there as the speed is stabilizing. I've found that speed takes a very long time to stabilize in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Much more responsive and realistic, I feel, in X-Plane. If you adjust the power, the speed settles and reacts, I think, maybe a lot more realistically. I know those are fighting words, but it is what it is. So I'm currently doing 90 knots. That just happens to be one of the recommended calibration speeds. So we're reading the design specs via the telemetry from the aircraft and trying to calculate some recommended speeds. These are just recommendations. Pick any speeds you want, right? So I'm doing roughly 89 knots. I'm going to pop the throttle up just a hair, try to get it stabilized a bit more. But I can go ahead and start my trim sweep now. So as soon as I hit start, what that's going to do is go through a quick sanity check, make sure my airspeed is still stabilized, and then it's going to start sweeping through the trim range. And if you watch what it's doing here, it's applying trim and then applying opposite elevator control to maintain level flight. And by doing that, we're effectively building a mapping of the trim and the trim response. A lot of aircraft will have a linear response. You kind of see there on the graph as it's plotting those points. It's a very linear line, right? And at this airspeed, a gain value in the old virtual Y gain setting that matches the slope of the line you see it drawing here would have worked perfectly fine. But as we change airspeeds or whatnot, the slope of that line may change, right? And we'll do a second calibration here at a faster speed in a second, and we'll be able to kind of see them next to each other. And I'll explain a little bit about how it blends the two curves together to provide a more realistic trim at any speed. So now it's finished with that calibration. If you want, you can go ahead and just apply it. This doesn't write it to your config. It just applies those settings and allows you to kind of test them out. For the sake of the video here, I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And that's then going to save that configuration into my settings. Notice there was a bit of a jump there as the new curve took over the trim position, but I'm still relatively trim neutral for the current airspeed. So what I'm going to do, because again this is meant to help you out here, right? And none of us have four hands, so I'm going to go ahead and start a new calibration. And while TelemFFB is flying the aircraft for me, I'm actually going to speed up to the speed that I want. So it will detect the change in airspeed and begin to recalibrate that trim neutral point that I was talking about in the beginning. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up, close to the 175 knot marker. I think that's actually getting, well, that didn't work out so well. I think I may have over boosted the controls there. But like I said, this is a pretty advanced tool, and it works most of the time. But I'm just going to go ahead and start it here. Let it restabilize. Generally, it handles large power changes fairly well. Obviously, you saw there it wasn't able to keep up with keeping things trimmed while the aircraft was accelerating. So I overdid it a little bit there. I'm going to go ahead and slow her down right around 165 knots or so. Like I said, these numbers, that 175 knots is actually calculated from the cruise speed that's given in the SimConnect information from the aircraft. That cruise speed is actually a TAS-based speed, so we have to try to convert that over to IAS, and then of course it's up to how accurate is that value that was put into the flight model by the developers in the first place. So I'm relatively stable here at 160 knots. I'm going to go ahead and start the trim sweep again. It's going through again and measuring those same trim points for any given point on the trim, what level of opposite control surfaces it take to counteract it. You'll also notice on some aircraft, right, this one we see it's got roughly 17 points. It's trying to calculate. Some aircraft, the trim is so sensitive that you may end up only with 4 or 5 points on either side of the axis, right? In some aircraft, you'll see it makes an S curve that goes through the middle. A lot of them are very linear. I've seen pretty much everything through the development cycle of this feature. So I'm going to go ahead and save this one as well. And you can see these are my two calibrations that I just ran. The one on the right here is the 86 knot calibration, and then this one here is the 160 knot calibration. In this aircraft, the slope is fairly uniform between those two. I have seen other aircraft where the slope will change drastically throughout different airspeeds. But if I did everything correctly and the tool is doing what it was designed to do, I should now be able to cut my throttle, and I'm back in control of the aircraft here. I'm going to go ahead and slow down to and I'm not going to adjust the trim yet. So I'm going to hold the aircraft level with the joystick as it slows down. Because ultimately the goal is to replicate that same feeling of being able to trim out the back pressure or forward pressure that you're holding without having the nose wander off because the trim is being over applied or under applied, or the virtual axis is moving too much. All the problems you guys are all familiar with from the old legacy trim following system. So you can see where my physical axis is over there on the left, and I'm going to slow this guy down here to try to get just above stall speed and somewhat settled and level. It's relatively good there. So I'm going to do my best to hold my physical joystick as steady as I can and just adjust the trim. And you can see the virtual axis is moving. My physical axis is not. But my physical center point on my joystick has now moved and matched where my virtual or my physical axis is. So I didn't move my hand at all, and I was able to effectively relieve all of that back pressure I was holding by adjusting the trim. So hopefully that all makes sense. Feel free to reach out on the Discord if you have any questions. There will be a beta coming out for this relatively soon as well. Actually, I'll probably drop the link to this video when I drop the beta. So let me know what you think. I had a lot of fun working on this feature. It's pretty cool. So thanks guys. See you next time.